guys, I'm Elise from WedVid and welcome to our first ever installment of Wed Talk. Thank you so much for joining us. Now here is where we talk about and to the best of the best in the wedding industry. You can find us at wedvid.com.au. You can join the conversation on the WedVid Facebook group, and also if you could share this video by swiping down on Android and left to right on Apple. So today we'll be discussing how to get the best photography for your wedding with our two experts, Normie and Jack from Divine Studios, joining me today. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Yeah. So just wanted to have a chat and see how we can find the best in wedding photography. How should someone go about choosing their wedding photographer?
Well, cool. I'm actually a photographer and cinematographer, and Jack is a photographer. So let's start with you, Jack.
Sure. I would say, first of all, when looking for a photographer, think about style, what sort of style you're after, what you like. The best way to do some research on that is just to get out there, look at wedding blogs, look at Pinterest boards, heaps of photographers' websites. There's heaps of different styles out there. Some that will click with you, some that won't. Some people like traditional photography, some people like sort of the quirky stuff where you stand on your head, take a photo and flip it upside down. Some people like the hipster style stuff, the vintage sort of vintage filters, clean. There's heaps of different styles out there. The best thing to do is find what really connects with you. Once you've sort of found the style that you like, the next step is to sort of whittle down out of the absolute plethora of photographers. So the best way to do that is probably, obviously you can do sort of Google searches, look at your blogs, but try and narrow it down to sort of 5 to 10 photographers before you even make your initial first contact. Once you've done that, I would generally base my judgment on the sort of approach you get back from them. If they're sort of sound like they're going to connect with you, they sound like the right sort of person, then that sounds like that's the sort of person that you might want to then go ahead and meet up with. Some people just hit copy, paste, send off a standard email to you. In my opinion, they're probably going to approach your wedding with the same sort of way, so you generally want people who are interested in you as a person, interested in you, your wedding, your story. Once you've done that, you can kind of whittle it down to about 3 or 5. That's when you want to actually make an appointment to meet them and have a chat to them all. First impressions are massive. The person who you connect with the most is, in my opinion, going to get the best photos for you on the day. If you're going to have someone there all day long, you want to be able to get along with them and have a good time, feel relaxed, feel comfortable. That's not to say that any photographer is going to be wrong for everyone. Everyone will fit with somebody. The photographers are just as different as the clients, so what you want to do is make sure that you align yourself with the person who is going to be the funnest for you.
Okay. Look, I do just quickly want to take the opportunity to invite those who have just joined the conversation. Thank you so much for joining the first Wed Talk ever. If you could also just share the video by swiping down on Android and swiping left to right on Apple devices, that'd be great. So just continuing on with that, Normie, what would you consider the most valuable points when hiring a photographer?
Yeah, look, I agree with Jack, and I think that when you're actually going to look for a photographer, there's only so much you can do online, and I think it's important then, once you've got maybe 5 or 6 photographers that you're interested in, is to then actually go and see them in person. And I would say that you should look at a variety of experience and quality. So that would mean, you can go for people at a slightly lower budget and a higher budget, and then you can make a great decision about what the best fit for you is based on what you've seen in terms of the quality and the experience and, the vibe that you get from that photographer or studio.
Mm-hmm. So in the wedding industry, would you consider price to be the most important thing, or as you say, is connecting with the photographer the most important thing?
Oh, it just depends on each couple, I think. Generally speaking, from many years of experience, I've worked with many different photographers, and I find that the photographers with more experience, more talent and high quality work, they're always going to charge more for that. So it's just personal preference who wants to pay for, amazing photography, or who wants to kind of like work within a certain budget. It's every couple's choice.
it definitely depends on how much emphasis you're putting on the photography yourself. If you're not all that interested, then obviously the budget's going to reflect that. You have some couples who have huge budget weddings who have a small budget for their photography, which I think is the wrong way around. I've seen a lot of couples who have quite an intimate small wedding, but they've spent most of the money on photography, which at the end of the day, that's what's going to be standing the test of time. That's what people are going to be looking at. Anyone who couldn't make it, that's what they're going to see. So the photography for me is going to be one of the most important things. I'd say that because I'm a photographer. But also for me, I think price, it's really hard to put a price on a really, really good product. So I would consider the connection with the photographer, because what you feel on the day is going to be the most important thing. You want to enjoy yourself first and foremost. For me, like it's all dollars and cents at the end. So if you have a really, really good experience, that none of that's really going to matter. That's not to say just go and blow 25 grand on a wedding photographer at all. Of course, do your research, and you can always try and sort of like mix between your budget and what packages you can get. Not to say you can really negotiate it sort of market style, but have a chat to your photographers, because most photographers will sort of kind of negotiate, and if not negotiate, they can actually try and custom tailor a package to you. Because if you only want a certain number of hours, you've got a certain amount of money, a photographer can generally say, look, for your budget I can do this much, or if you want this much, you might have to come up to here, and you can always sort of meet them halfway.
Yeah, because quite commonly, I mean, I'm seeing brides taking the budget cut in the photographer and choosing to go for a student photographer or something like that. What kind of value does a professional photographer offer in comparison to one of those student photographers?
Go for it,
okay. Well, I think you're going to have peace of mind, and you're going to get quality work. So once the day's been and gone, you can't go back and change it. So essentially, you want to be able to print great images from your day, and I've seen many people hire a wide variety of photographers, and you've heard great stories, you've had bad stories, and ultimately I think it's an important decision. And I think that if you did a survey of people and did a questionnaire, you'd find that the people who love their photography and who've got a quality photographer, they are the most happy with their decision.
Mm-hmm. For me, it all comes down to experience, that word experience, and that's on both sides of the playing field. So it's your experience, what you experience on the day, how much you enjoy yourself. You don't want to spend your whole day stressing out about whether your photos are going to be good, what to do next. You've done so much planning, so much organizing before the day. On the actual day, all you want to think about is just enjoying yourself. And so having that knowledge that you've got some guy there who's done it, he's done it many times before, he's got a proven like track record, is really going to put your mind at ease. And on the other side, the experience that the photographer brings to the table, a lot of the times you'll find the photographer on the day is almost like a wedding planner. He's the person, or he or she is the person that you look to when you're wondering what to do next. So after the ceremony, you come out and everyone's sort of like gathering around and what do we do? And the photographer has to have that sort of know-how to go, all right, this is what we're doing. We're going to do family shots here, we're going to do that, we're going to do this, and do it in a way that doesn't seem like it's bossy and let's do this, let's do that. It's sort of like it's all part of the day. It's got to flow nicely. So for me, experience is the biggest word of the day. Your experience should be amazing, and your photographers should have a vast amount of experience themselves.
And everyone that's joining us, what's a reasonable turnaround? We've been asked by Corey. Traditionally the turnaround times used to be for photography used to be quite common for about 6 months. However, I think that over the last few years there's been an influx of the number of editors and companies and also just freelancers available to actually help out with post-production, and a lot of the time specializing is such a great thing. So we, for example, tend to often have dedicated editors and freelance editors working with us, and that really helps to make the turnaround times quicker. I think a lot of studios now are aiming for around 2 to 3 months, which would be a really good turnaround time, but you know, that would be a nice turnaround time. You wouldn't always expect it to be that quick.
Obviously, there's a lot of work that goes on before the pictures actually get produced to the couple. What kind of thing is going on in that period? You know, is it just sitting with the photographer, or what are you building? What structure do you use?
Before the wedding day itself?
Well, both.
So before the wedding day, you need to really sort of connect with the wedding couple, find out about their story. If you want the best photos possible, you want to know who's important, who's going to be there, so that when you're there on the day, you're going to be educated enough to capture the right moments and capture the photos that the bride and groom are going to absolutely love. So there's a lot of sort of preparation, catching up with the bride and groom. A lot of photographers, ourselves included, will do a pre-shoot, which is basically just a sort of 20-minute photo shoot, just so you can go through what it feels like to be in front of the camera. You can feel each other's personality out. You'll know on the day whether maybe the bride and groom don't like kissing in front of the camera. Maybe the bride and groom are very laughy. Maybe the bride and groom aren't very laughy. It's all about just sort of feeling each other out, and that saves a lot of time on the day when you're actually doing a shoot. As I say, it's something like a quick shoot, but it can you can go through certain sort of positions, poses, just little things like that. That on the day you can say, "Hey guys, let's do this," and you'll when you arrive in the morning, basically on the wedding day. It's not like, oh, this is that guy that we met about a year ago who we booked, and his hair's different and I've forgotten who he is. It's like, oh, hey, how are you? Good to see you again. Yeah, we saw you about a month ago and we had heaps of fun, and we saw the photos and we absolutely love them, and it just gives them that security that they're going to absolutely kick ass on the day.
We just got a question from Corey about same-day edits. Now, same-day edits was something that started a few years ago, and they're still very common now, that a cinematography or a wedding film team will actually capture the film, the video on the day, and will show a short film at the reception. I've had experience doing around about 15 or 20 same-day edits, and it's actually something that is a lot of fun. You know, some filmmakers, they don't like it because it's too stressful, but I actually really enjoy the challenge of doing that. So sometimes that requires the studio to have extra people involved, because we might not necessarily want to be editing and missing out on capturing something at the reception, for example. And so, but still, I think it's a great thing to look into, see if your cinematographers offer that. And if they do, just see what they can offer you, because what's really great about that is I have done same-day edits in the past where guests have come up to me and said, wow, you know, like that was the highlight of the wedding. We didn't really think the wedding was kind of as amazing as it looked on the same-day edit, you know, which is kind of what that's really telling you is that we can really, you know, like dive into the emotion and the story with filmmaking techniques that make actually things like the vows and the speeches and the wedding itself seem even more real than it is in person.
It can be cool too to actually see. Like, what the hell is a photographer doing climbing a tree, and why is he behind the bushes, and what's he doing, and God, this guy looks like a weirdo over there, and he's so far away, and can he actually see anything from there? And then at the end of the night, when you see all these awesome photos, and you're like, I look awesome. It's actually really good. The problem is you have to be aware that it might actually cost a little bit more, because basically the studio has to bring a whole nother person there specifically for that job, because otherwise they're going to miss all these sort of photographs during the reception. So you have to be aware, you might have to fork out a little bit more money. It can be cool, and people can get a feel for like how good the photos are already, which is really good.
Yeah, cool. One other thing that we were talking about before is coverage of the day. Like, you know, some studios offer 4 hours, 6 hours, 10 hours. I know that we offer mainly sort of around 10 hours and upwards of that. Now, how do you feel about the coverage on the day?
Once again, it comes down to what the couple are after, how much emphasis they put on their photography. There's sort of 4-hour packages where it's sort of just the meat and potatoes, just the bare bones. It's sort of the ceremony, the family shots, couple shots. They're all well and good, and if it came down to budget choice, I would, if you can't afford anything at all, definitely go with that, get a professional for that. But personally, I feel like getting the whole story is going to be a lot better for you. Just having those sort of, the getting ready shots, although you might think, oh, it's just me chucking on some socks, who cares about that? Oftentimes those are the sweetest moments when you might capture something that just behind the scenes, those real sort of intimate family moments, because you've got your parents there, you've got your siblings there, you've got your best friends there, and once you're at the ceremony, it's sort of you're on the show, and you sort of have a bit more of a guard up, and there's a lot more set out things that you need to do. So there needs to be this, you need to stand here, you need to do that. Whereas when you're at home getting ready, that's when you might get your dad come over and just give you that look. And if the photographer can capture something like that, for me, that's absolutely priceless. So for me, a full day package is better.
Yeah, look, I think that you've actually talked about capturing the day. Now, we love to capture what cams and lenses and stabilizers do we use. I'll answer that in a question. But in terms of coverage, photography, I think one of the most important, or the most important thing in photography is expression. So, you hear a lot of couples say, oh, I don't want to look unnatural, I don't want to look posed, and so forth. Well, the thing is that when you first have a camera pointing at you, you feel quite awkward and you're not going to look very natural. So the way to get natural photos is firstly to have a photographer who knows how to make you feel comfortable. But second of all, actually, is a photographer that is there to capture the emotion of the day and those little moments throughout the day, where you aren't, sort of aware of the camera or posing or where you are just being natural. Now, you need a longer coverage for that, because those moments happen throughout the day, like from the morning until the late evening. And so to get that type of photography, the photographer needs to be there for a full 10 to maybe 12 hours. So we don't really, as wedding photographers, a lot of us, we don't really want to just capture and make you look good. We actually want to capture the emotions and the story of the day, which is, I think, what makes wedding photography so special. Cool, I'll quickly go in there. Yeah, absolutely. You have to have 2 professional bodies as a wedding photographer. Minimum. At least. And when we talk about professional bodies, we're talking around $4,000 cameras upwards, we're not talking about the $1,200 camera. That is not really suitable for professional wedding photography. The performance is not going to look very good in low light situations for most of the time, because weddings actually have really difficult lighting, especially at the reception. Now, in terms of the cinematography, we use one of our favorite tools is the Pilot, the Steadicam Pilot, which allows us to get moving shots. And in terms of cinematic style, one of the main elements of cinematic style are movement. Is one of the main things. Movement gives the shots energy. It makes it more visually appealing. And the best movement that you can get these days is from a proper rig like a Steadicam Pilot, which is what I use, or the Ronins and the actual gimbals now, which are amazing as well. And so the quality of the cinematography in the last year or two, it's just getting better and better.
You get to look like Batman when you wear those things too. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, true. Okay, so one of the last things we want to quickly talk about actually is wedding albums and digital packages. Like most photographers, because offer either an album or prints or a digital package. Now, how do you feel about like albums and digital packages?
I'm a bit old school in that way. I mean, I learnt to shoot film, so for me the physical medium is always going to be so much better than just a bunch of pixels on a screen. I mean, Digital photos are awesome. They're very good for the ease of access to the general community. You can send them to your family really quickly. So that's all well and good, but for me, it's just not complete. You haven't got the complete package until you've got something physical that you can actually hold in your hand and look at. It just is so much more rewarding to be able to look at something like that, especially in terms of an album, like flicking through an album. Whether it's like that I've been trained to think that way my whole life, that holding something in your hand, it just feels so much nicer. And showing your friends something that is actually physical, there's just something about it that for me is better. What do you reckon?
Yeah, look, the point that I wanted to make about this is that you've invested in a really great photographer, hopefully you have, and a really great artist, and then you want to really enjoy that, your investment. So you want to be able to, look at the photos and look at them in high quality. And an album is absolutely the best way to do that, because we offer both an album package, and we also offer digital photos as well. So it's totally the couple's choice what they would like to choose. However, we have a strong tendency towards going towards albums, because we've actually seen what happens with albums and what happens with digital packages in the future. What happens is that we have really high referral rates from couples who get albums, because they just enjoy the photography so much, and they get the most out of it, and so there's they're really happy. And in terms of the digital packages, there's not to say you shouldn't get a digital package, but I think there are some disadvantages, because of the couples who get digital packages, generally speaking, there's two things that we see. One is that couples will make their own albums, which if you were to show it back to the studio or to the photographer, they would probably maybe be a little bit upset, because the quality is not going to be anywhere near what the studio can offer. And the second thing is that probably more than half or most of the couples that do get digital packages, they then take the images and put them away somewhere on a computer or on a hard drive. And I would say that the majority in the next 5 to 10 years do not actually do anything with the photos. And then you're losing all that time with not being able to share those photos and look at them whenever you want to, because sitting around with with friends or family around a big computer screen looking at images, it just doesn't really happen that much. It's not the same experience.
Yeah. That was a good question there.
Yep.
What was it?
From Corey?
Yeah,
I didn't see it.
Yeah.
Maybe repeat your question.
Yeah, say it again. I just saw the end of it. Say it again.
Cool. Now, maybe you might just quickly.
Yeah, guys. If there was any other questions that you wanted to ask that we didn't get to cover in this Wed Talk, feel free to post them on our WedVid page, which is on Facebook, the WedVid group. Sorry. And we can always try and answer your questions there, because our experts do feature and try and answer as much as they can. You can also share this video by swiping down the next time and swiping left to right on the Apple phone.
Yeah, and let's just quickly go through what WedVid is. So we're doing a Wed Talk right now, which is going to happen every Wednesday at 6 p.m, where next week we're going to have guests talking about how to choose the right celebrant for your wedding. The following week we're going to have some musicians who've done hundreds of weddings talk about how to give the best experience to your guests at your wedding through making sure that everything works well and that you've got the right music or the right band at your wedding. So that's really the value that we want to bring with Wed Talk, and Wed Talk is based on the wedvid.com.au website, where there will be, as Elise mentioned, the Facebook group where people can chat. And
sorry about that, Corey, but you can always refer your friends.
And essentially, we're also doing high quality, high definition, storytelling and interviews with who we consider to be the best in the wedding industry, be it the celebrant, the planner, the hair and makeup. We just choose who we feel are the best, and we go and we just chat to them, and we publish that at wedvid.com.au.
Essentially, we're doing all the hard work for you.
Yeah, perfect. So I think we'll have to wrap up this time, and so yeah, you guys maybe have any last words?
Yeah, just make sure you have fun. That's what it's all about. So if you do a little bit of research at the start, and book early for your photographer, because basically they're the first ones to go. Venue and photographer, they're the guys who book out up to 2 years in advance. So get in early, don't just put it off the last minute, or you're going to miss out on all the really, really good photographers.
Absolutely.
So get in as soon as you have your date. Of course, have your date first. There's no point contacting anyone until you've got your date. As soon as you've got your date, get looking and find a really good photographer. Make sure that you guys connect personally, and that they have the skills to pay the bills. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us on Wed Talk, guys, and remember that you can join in the conversation on our Facebook group page. Thank you so much for that, and thank you so much, Normie and Jack.